Hey guys, welcome to Travel Videos. Today I'm going to give you my final review on the Panasonic GH5. I've been using the GH5 for a couple months now, and really the only way to find out whether a camera is really good or not is to actually use it on a whole bunch of different projects. And so I've taken it on a travel project, I've taken it on a wedding, I still have a couple more weddings that I've booked a long time ago. I've shot a whole bunch of YouTube videos, so now I have a much better grasp about what the GH5 is like and who it's for. That's really what I want to talk about, is the pros and cons, but really who is the GH5 best for? So here is my final review of the GH5. First, let's start off with the pros. One of the biggest pros I think of the GH5 is the flip LCD screen. I've said it before and I will say it again. I think every small camera in the DSL form factor should have a flip LCD screen. It's just so handy. It's so useful. Anytime you're filming yourself for vloggers or YouTube videos, you need a flip LCD. You don't want to always have to have another monitor just to be able to see yourself while you're filming. So flip LCD screen, huge pro of the GH5. Next is the long battery life. I really like that the GH5 has good battery life. The cameras like Sony's, they just suck with their batteries. You have to have so many batteries just to shoot the whole day, and the GH5 is so much better for this, so that's a big pro for me. The image stabilization, really impressive. I've really enjoyed using the image stabilization. On some of my shoots where I typically would have carried around something like a monopod to keep things more steady, I've been able to just go handheld with a GH5, which is really weird, but really impressive. It gets rid of all that micro jitter, that micro shake, and just works really well. You do get some of that wobble, some of that warping going on if you're on the wide end of your lens. It's a bit wobbly, it's a bit weird, but for the most part, it's pretty good actually. I like it a lot. And then lastly, the big pro is the slow motion capabilities. Having 60p 4K, having 120 frames, even higher in HD, but the 120 is really where the max is for me. Over that, it's just not that good anymore. But it's really nice having that really good slow motion in both 4K and in HD. So I really like that. And then let's get into the cons side. One of the biggest downsides I think for me has been the dynamic range. Just getting used to cameras like the C300 and even the Sony a7R II and other cameras, they just have so much better dynamic range. And for me, dynamic range is one of the most important features of a camera. More than 4K and all those things is dynamic range. And dynamic range basically means that you can have a wider range of luminance values. So you can get both really bright things and really dark things at the same time. And with the GH5, it just doesn't have very many stops of dynamic range. Unless, of course, you're using the Vlog. And I've talked about the Vlog before, and it's just not good. I do not like the Vlog at all on the GH5. I think it's a total waste of money. A lot of people try to say that it's only for 10-bit, but there is no reason that it shouldn't work on 8-bit. It works on Sony and other cameras in 8-bit just fine. They have a great log profile. There should be no reason why the GH5 cannot do a good log profile even in 8-bit. No reason at all. So without the Vlog, the dynamic range is really bad, and therefore that's a really big con for me. Another thing that I really don't like is the smaller sensor size. You just don't get as much depth of field, and there just isn't as much depth in the shots, and it's also really hard to get really wide shots. So I've really been missing having that full frame look in the Sony a7R II, or even just a Super 35 would be much better. It definitely influences the look of the image, and for me, in the end, I really care about the image a lot. And then the last really big con is the autofocus. I don't think the autofocus is really good. It's definitely a lot worse than something like Canon's dual pixel autofocus. Canon's just really have really nice autofocus, and the Panasonic just isn't there. And usually it doesn't really matter for me. I don't actually use autofocus that much, but the GH5 is really close to being a perfect vlogging or YouTube camera, but because of the bad autofocus, it kind of defeats the purpose of using it for vlogging. So I would definitely put the autofocus on the con side. So those are my big pros and cons. But really, when you're looking at a camera, you should be asking if it's good for you. One camera isn't good for everybody. And so for me, I'm really looking for a camera that you can get really nice, beautiful cinematic images from. And I just don't think that the GH5 is quite there. There are a lot of really good sides to the GH5, but trying to get that really nice cinematic image is a little bit tricky with the GH5. It just doesn't come as smoothly, it doesn't come as easily. You have to work a lot harder, get perfect lighting. There's just not a lot of wiggle room with the GH5. And this was one of the big reasons I was really excited about the GH5, having 10-bit and slow motion and all these capabilities, vlog. I thought that the GH5 would be the perfect camera to take on my travel films and all these kinds of projects where I want to stay really small and nimble and just be able to get really cool shots without having to take all this gear with me. But it hasn't quite lived up to the expectations for me, and that's because I'm going for a very specific style. But I do think that the GH5 is a really good camera for people that are filming themselves or filming something like YouTube videos where you don't necessarily need really cinematic, high quality footage. The GH5 is actually a really good vlogging camera. I would say it's near perfect actually, except for the autofocus. It's one of the only ones that has 4K flip LCD screen and just in-body stabilization, time-lapse built in, all these nice features that most cameras don't have, and in a really small compact body. With the exception of really good autofocus, it really is near perfect for vlogging. So I would highly recommend the GH5 for vloggers. But also those of you that just want to do nice 4K videos for YouTube and you don't necessarily need all that dynamic range and need to get all those nice cinematic shots, whether you're just doing talking head videos or anything like that where you just don't need as much. So there we have it. I would say that the GH5 is perfect for vloggers and that style of filming, but not as good for really cinematic, nice, beautiful footage. I think a lot of the other cameras are much better at this. So is this the right camera for you? Well, I can't tell you that. You're gonna have to think about, what do I usually film, what kind of projects am I doing, and whether or not the GH5 fits your style. If you're looking to do really cinematic short films, then I don't think that the GH5 is super good for you. But if you don't need that really high quality cinematic image where you're really pushing the footage and color grading, this camera is great for you. It's definitely a really powerful camera and it's pretty affordable, so I do recommend it for a lot of different users. Just don't buy the vlog, it's not worth it, don't waste your money. So there we have it, that is my final review of the GH5. I'll probably keep using it for some little films still, but I probably will phase it out fairly soon. Alright, that's it. It's really hot outside. It's time for me to hit the beach. Guys, enjoy the filmmaking process and go get some of those travel feels.